Hello, beautiful deviants, and welcome to the Botanical Biohacking Podcast. Today we have the ever-talented Eliz Erman to talk to us. Eliz Britton, let me start again.
They're both technically right.
They're both right?
Yeah, because my name's hyphenated.
Oh, it is hyphenated. Okay, you know what? I'm just rolling with it. She's going to be talking to us about Corydalis, which is a beautiful herb called yenhusuo in Chinese, which is actually related to opium. It's not opium, but it also kills pain and works along similar pathways, which is why people use it to get off of opiates. So if you could tell us more about this beautiful and sexually attractive herb, we would all appreciate it.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me on, Andrew. So yes, it is in the same family as opium and poppy plants, and it is also non-addictive. I think that's the most important thing to convey to people. It's in the same family, but it's non-addictive, and it uses the same pathways to help relieve pain and inflammation as well.
And then?
There's also been research that finds that it can help regenerate nerve tissue that's been damaged.
Now that sounds good, because what you were talking about before was it's nice, but I'm pretty sure chili peppers can do that, and I can get that at CVS. But when you're talking about neurogenesis, that's pretty nifty.
So the main chemical in the plant that helps with neurogenesis is acetylcholinolide. And it is dependent on dosage for patients. And the other, I'm stuttering. This will be edited, correct?
No. But the name that you just mentioned, it sounds like the name of a unicorn. Like if I were a unicorn, I was going to pick my name, then that would be it. Could you say it again?
Sure, I'll say two of the main ingredients
okay.
for you, because they're all really long.
Okay.
So the first one that helps with nerve damage and nerve repair is acetylcholinolide. And then the next one is dihydrocorybulbine. Mm-hmm. And that one is effective for inflammatory pain and neuropathic pain.
So the first one's my unicorn name. The second one is your unicorn name.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay.
Mine gets hyphenated as DHCB.
Okay.
So you got to say that last one all by yourself every day.
I could do my best. So what drew you to this herb in particular?
So once upon a time, I was studying Chinese herbs in school, and I was taking a lot of formulas for bloodstasis. And I had started getting an aversion to Honghua. It smelled like stinky feet to me. Every time I boiled it, I literally felt nauseous just from the smell of it. Mm-hmm. And so my Chinese professor decided that yanhusuo would be the correct herb to add into my formula to help give me some more blood-moving properties, but also relieve more pain. And for the first time in my life, I think I had a period of time where I was not in any physical pain. And it was a real eye-opener for me. And in the back of my head, I said, one day I'm going to work with this again. And, you know, I let it go and continued studying. And that experience really opened my mind to what plants can do, and that there were other options out there besides Western drugs to provide relief for me.
Awesome. So then you started to work with topicals, and your topicals, I'm a fan of them. I use a few of them actually, and I just slather them on my head and face indiscriminately of how it should be used. And I think my personal beauty is a testament to how well this work.
It is. I mean, your skin's gorgeous.
Yeah, well, it's certainly shiny.
I didn't know it had properties to help the skin until you started applying it to your face. I think that was when I sent you the first sample. That's the first place you put it. And I
I
said,
was
what the heck?
I wasn't in pain at that time. I did have shoulder pain later, and then I used it and it was very effective. But at the time I didn't have any pain, so I was like, well, it's
I think what you told me was as well, if I'm going to have a reaction to anything, I'll know if I put it on my face. And I was like, that's insane, but it makes a lot of sense. So,
well, I knew the herb quality is good, and I know that you are very fastidious when it comes to making quality products. I wasn't worried about any bad reactions, but I was just curious to see, hey, what's this going to do? I've been hit in the face a lot. I mean, justifiably. It's not like the people who hit me were bad people. It was in sparring or because I was a jerk that day and I got justifiably punched. So I figure, well, when you have trauma repeatedly over time, it can cause, with the old blood stasis, you can get water retention. So if you fell on your face once, even if you're not actively having blood stasis, it could be that there's dead tissue in there that needs to get out. So using blood moving herbs isn't a bad idea.
yeah. And, when you take this herb traditionally, it's internal. Most of the research is on Yan Huso being taken internally and managing pain or discomfort that way. Using it as a topical, I was only able to find one study for a Chinese formula that showed it was used as a topical with a few other herbs for treating, I think it was bone cancer pain. And I said to myself, by then I had been already making this salve for about 4 or 5 months, and it just dawned on me that there was no research out there for a topical. And when I found this published research on it for cancer pain, I said, oh, that's it. That's all I needed. Now I'm going to continue to pursue this. And sure enough, as the formula grew and kind of evolved with how I got the herbs together and rendered them, the formula got strong enough to work as a topical pain relief.
As a traditional approach, it was definitely used in most trauma formulas, and it's used a lot topically. But as far as modern research on it, it's a little tricky to do because topicals, the pain tests that you tend to do on mice, like the writhing test, they'll put it on a heat plate and then they see how long it takes before the mouse is writhing in pain. So if you can help it, it's not something that anybody wants to do. It's not like anybody who's a grad student's like, I really want to test how long before the mice stop writhing in pain. It's terrible. Nobody likes to do the research, almost nobody. So if you can get some anecdotal evidence or just historic evidence, then that tends to be enough if you can spare the little mice.
And I think there's a lot of historical evidence in China. When they had their opiate wars, a large portion of that population was hooked on opium. And this was the herb that they used to help curb their cravings. And one of the reasons why it worked so well is because most opium or opiates hit up your dopamine 1, 3, and 5 receptors. And the dihydrochlorobulbine hits up your D2 and D4. And D2 and D4 are responsible for cutting off the craving cycle. So not only is it activating all of the same cell receptors that you would use if you were taking an opiate, but it activates the 2 others that are responsible for stopping the craving. And because it does that, you cannot build up a tolerance to this herb. If you're dosed by weight, like you should be with any opiate, the same thing applies for Yan Huso. You need to be dosed by weight if you're taking it internally. And you will not be able to, you won't start at 5 grams and then work your way up to 35 grams. There was another published research paper that showed that it can actually reduce people's tolerance to opiates. So if they were already addicted to opiates and they were taking 25 milligrams of Oxycontin 2 or 3 times a day, by using this herb, you can actually reduce their tolerance to that opiate and make it so that they don't need such a high dose anymore.
That's amazing. People are dying a lot. I mean, more people are dying from the opiate epidemic in the United States than COVID by far. It's
terrible.
It's the silent killer. And People who are just, they break an ankle, then they develop a little bit of a dependency, and then people's entire lives are just getting absolutely destroyed. So to even be able to reduce the amount of opiates that they need to be taking is a tremendous gift. And then, of course, for many people, that's a gateway to get off of it. A lot of the formulas around the early 1900s, when people, just after the opiate wars, or I should say the opiate epidemic in China, this was the king herb or the main herb in the formulas that help people to reduce their dependency and eventually break their addiction. The fact that it also kills pain is just an added benefit. This is just, I think, one of the most understated herbs that is absolutely needed, especially right now in the United States, where I think the United States consumes 80% of the world's opiates, and I think the UK does quite well. Also, the rest of the world doesn't.
Shortly following us.
Yeah, the rest of the world doesn't use them as much as we are. And between the big pharma and the Mexican cartels, that's really where we're getting our fix. And if Chinese society is any guideline, it did not do anything good for Chinese society.
No, those addictions are debilitating, and a lot of them stem from trying to relieve some kind of pain. Sometimes it's emotional pain, but a lot of times it's also physical pain. And from my own personal experience with using painkillers, I fell into Chinese medicine backwards because I had an injury when I was very young to my back, and my anesthesiologist that I was seeing at Johns Hopkins gave me Oxycontins that I was allowed to take every 2 to 4 hours or as needed. It was at my discretion, and I was 16 or 17 years old. Mm-hmm. So luckily I didn't get addicted to it, but that is not the case for most people. And they're trusting their physicians, and that's why physicians are now so stringent on how they're prescribing these drugs, because they don't want any liability for it. So as an alternative to patients who are really in pain, who may not be able to get what they need because their physicians don't want a lawsuit against them, this particular herb is a diamond in the rough.
Just looking at the effects too on society, Lan's mother, when she was growing up, had a number of brothers and sisters, and quite a few of them died because her father was addicted to opium. It was during that time, and he wasn't able to work. It was so debilitating for him that when they had a massive food shortage, one kid had a limp and couldn't go up into the hills to pick vegetables and starved to death. And just absolutely insane levels of poverty hit afterwards because people lose their ability to function. And while it's not as severe as that in the United States, people are losing their ability to work, to think. And also, over time, opiate use destroys parts of the brain associated with compassion and mirror neurons and the ability to connect with people. So it's not overstatement to say it's destroying relationships, it's destroying society.
I think in general, people who are dealing with any level of chronic pain, they're struggling mentally with life every single day, whether they're getting relief from an opiate or not. There's a mental component and a mental game to dealing with pain every day that is really hard to understand or conceive of unless you've experienced it. I'm fortunate and unfortunate to have experienced that. So when my clients come in, or I'm talking to a friend who, just had their back go out, I understand what they're talking about when they say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing good today." Okay, but you just came in limping. Well, this is good for me today, and they won't seem down about it. And they've actually, because they've got themselves in a place where they're literally just trying to make it through the day. And I think that affects how people function with each other in society and with their family and their kids, and how they feel about their life every day. And I'm working on a few different ways to continue to bring this particular herb to the public, but even to help them get through 4 hours. You know, applying this topically, you're looking at 2 to 4 hours of relief. That might be enough for someone to make dinner for their family. And it seems like it's a little thing, but really it's a big deal for a lot of people who are suffering.
How do you find it's best used? Do you have people put it on just when it's hurting or at night, or is there some process to using it that really helps it to make an impact?
The best ways for people to use the Yanhuso topical salve is either when they're about to do a errand or work that they know would exacerbate the current injury that they have, or if they put it on at nighttime before they go to sleep. For people who are very restless at night because they wake up and something doesn't feel comfortable, this is a great way to help you get a solid sleep and not wake up from those issues. For people who have arthritis, things where mobility is also an issue throughout the day, putting it on before you go do activities, the motion of engaging your muscles and tissue while the salve is on your skin helps it do its job better.
So it's better when there's kind of movement and maybe heat to increase the circulation.
Yeah, so I often use it in clinic when I'm doing red light therapy, because the red light reduces inflammation, it moves the lymphatic tissue, but then it also creates just a little bit of heat, and that heat drives it in. It also works very well with other topicals, such as CBD products, or I'm a fan of Evil Bone Water. So, you know, using it together with CBD products and those tinctures with the menthol and camphor in them drives it in even further. There is no CBD in this product. I actually designed it so that people who got drug tested would be able to use it. So federal workers, people who are recovered addicts who are not allowed to get drugs at all. I just had a friend who had a root canal and she couldn't get any painkillers. So she was using this on her jaw to help reduce some of the swelling and reduce the pain. It's important to have multiple ways to tackle pain. So sometimes 2 products are better than one.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for my product to do it all, but you know.
Yeah, well, that's the reality, right? I mean, when you hear fantasy stuff, it's a miracle always for everybody, and herbal medicine doesn't really work that way. So this type of strategy used with Yanhuso, this is going to work ideally with, I mean, it'll work generally for pain, but it's kind of best suited for pain which is sharp and stabbing in nature, maybe that which is worse with immobility, or when people are sleeping and the pain wakes them up at night. Is that correct? Are there other applications for this as well?
So bloodstasis type of pain, the sharp stabbing, throbbing pain, that's what it tends to do really, really good for. Nerve pain can vary how nerve pain presents. It does very well for all types of nerve pain, whether it's sharp, whether it's numbness and tingling. One of the things that we learned for its application was that it works great for menstrual cramps. Internally, it also works very well for menstrual cramps, but a lot of women, they're so used to putting salt on their stomach with essential oils and Midol and Advil, and you know, this pretty much will knock out any mild to moderately severe abdominal cramps from menstrual disorder.
Excellent. How can people find it?
Well, they can go to www.botanicalez.com and they can order single jars, or they can also sign up to be a practitioner and get wholesale prices.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us about Yanhuso, aka Corydalis?
Corydalis.
Corydalis, and its beautiful applications.